Hi, I'm Jodie Benvenist, a psychologist, parenting author and the Director of Parent Wellbeing, and this is the St John's Grammar Learning Early series. Last episode we talked about how you can support your child's learning at school, preschool and in the early learning environment. And today we're going to be talking about comparing your child to other children, which is quite a common thing that happens amongst parents. Today we have Bronwyn, who's a Year 3 teacher. We have Sonia, who's a parent of the school. You have two girls here. And Alison, who's a Year 2 teacher. So I might start with you, Sonia. What happens here for parents when we start comparing our kids to other children in the class?
I think it's very natural for parents to compare their children to others. They do it because they're worried about their child. Is my child succeeding compared to others? Are they falling behind? Just wanting to know where they're at relative to others, really.
Yeah, and do you see that as a teacher, Bronwyn?
I do, and I think most teachers do. It's natural. Parents want to know if their children are going okay at school, and for them, their only chance to work that out is to sort of compare with other children.
Yeah. Do you think it's useful though, Alison?
Well, it's not particularly useful in that each child progresses at their own rate. Each child has their own strengths and their own abilities, and we all have things that we could do work more on. Yeah. So it's best to look at the child as a whole child and see where they are developmentally. Yeah,
and as individuals. Because even, like you would know, Sonia, as a parent of two, that even amongst siblings, the differences can be huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, very different strengths in each child and very different things that they bring to the table. And I think it's about appreciating what they have uniquely to each of them and how you can work with them, on their own individual progress rather than how they compare to each other. Yeah. And that's healthier for them as individuals as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Bronwyn, what do you, instead of focusing on, how does my child compare to, what can parents do instead? What's helpful?
I think a really useful thing is to come in and chat to the teacher.
Yeah.
Just if you're worried or you're concerned about how your child's progressing or you're worried that they're falling behind, then it's really great to come in and have a chat, because the teacher has a broader picture of how they're going.
Yes.
And also a teacher can help you to refocus rather than being anxious about that comparison. Bring it back to how your child's going. Yeah. So paint a really clear picture about their strengths, paint a really clear picture about what the areas are that they're working on, and then together map out and look at what small progresses are happening along the way and celebrate those as they progress on their learning journey. Yes. And it's much more effective. Yeah. And it's much more useful. Yeah. And for the child too, they actually have a bit of a roadmap as to where they're going with their learning, and they can see what's ahead of them, and so can the parent as well.
Yeah, so it is about that progress that the child makes rather than how they compare to others. Would you agree, Alison?
Well, certainly, and you want to know, that they are progressing, and that's the important thing. And it may be at a different rate from other children, but that they are indeed making some progress.
So, Sonia, as a parent, do you see different strengths in your children, and how do you support those different strengths?
I think you work individually with your child to really celebrate the things that they do well, and to be able to encourage them, to build their confidence by understanding the things that are really unique and the interests and the preferences that they have, and really work with them on that. And don't compare how they're going to other children or even to their sibling. And I think they then feel successful because they can see their progress individually, and you as a parent feel much more confident because you see them progressing and you feel less need to compare them to others or even to their sibling.
Yeah, because it's much more than just achieving a certain score on a test or doing well on a certain task. It's actually about teaching them about learning and some of those characteristics of persisting. Absolutely. And those sorts of things.
We want children to develop as lifelong learners. We want them to be really resilient learners. We want them to have skills that will carry through beyond school. And so I think it's really hard to compare anyway, because how do you compare a child's emotional well-being with their academic well-being and with their social well-being? Yes. What's easy for one child to do in one situation with their peers, they might have difficulty in the academics. And I think it's really important to look at the strategies. Yep. And things like resilience and how persistent are they? Are they a risk taker? Yep. And because they're the things that will actually prompt them to become a deeper, stronger, more effective learner. Yep. Through across all the areas, not only the curriculum but in general in life.
Yeah, because we do actually want our kids to be taking risks, don't we, Alison, in their learning?
That's right, and we want them to be able to reflect on their learning as well, and to know how they're going themselves. And so I guess at school now we place a lot of emphasis on the children being able to reflect on their learning and understand how they're progressing in all areas.
And do you think there's some ways that us as parents can help that process with our children? How can we help our kids to be reflective learners?
I think it's really great for children to be able to just verbalise and identify their areas of strength.
Yeah.
And just be able to say, this is something I'm really good at. But at the same time, this is something I actually need to be working on.
Yeah.
And I think for parents, rather than perhaps, and for teachers, rather than perhaps telling the children what they're good at, or lifting a certain expectation and placing it on them, just actually saying to the child, well, how do you think you're going? Where do you think? Because I think children actually know a lot more than we give them credit for. And they actually know what they feel good about in their learning. And they actually can really quite easily identify through conversation, well, this is actually something I actually need to get better at, and I need maybe some help doing that. So then you can look at strategies. Well, okay, if that's your goal, let's look at what we can put in place to help you reach it. So for me, it's about always having something to say, this is what I can share as a strength with my peers and my family members, and this is something that I am actually getting better at.
Yeah. And it isn't Alison, about developing that intrinsic motivation?
Absolutely.
What, if people don't understand what that is, how would you describe it?
So that's part of your reflection, really feeling good about the things that you've been able to achieve yourself. So recognising that you've achieved them, it really motivates children when they know what they've achieved and what they're good at. And so you don't need extrinsic rewards like stickers and things like that.
Yeah, so it's not the reward charts and the stickers, it's actually kids being motivated by learning themselves and feeling good within themselves about
and that satisfaction.
What they're learning and achieving.
And they feel more relaxed about who they are.
Yeah.
They actually have those external pressures taken off of them, and they can just be who they really are, and then you can celebrate them for them. And they feel comfortable, and when they feel comfortable, they're more likely to extend themselves and work on their own areas of weakness that they need to improve.
So do you think sometimes as parents we can have maybe too higher expectations or unrealistic expectations of our kids?
Absolutely. I think if your expectations of your child are too high and they feel that they can't reach those, that they're going to fail against them, then that undermines their confidence. I think it's really important to have expectations that are realistic for your child, to be able to talk with your teacher about where they're at and the progress that they need to make. And if they don't feel that pressure from you, and they feel that they can succeed, they feel happier, and you as a parent feel happier because you can see that they're feeling successful and happy at their pace.
Because I think sometimes we can get caught up as parents, can't we, in that the way our kids are performing is actually a reflection on how good we're doing in our role as parents, but it's actually not really about that, is it? It's about, there's much more going on. It's really about our individual child, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, our experiences were quite different when we were at school.
Yeah.
Society's very different, opportunities at school are very different, and so it's very hard sometimes to detach yourself from your own experiences at school and allow your child to have their own unique experiences at school, and just step back and let them pursue their talents and their strengths, and encourage them on the way.
Absolutely. Do you think there's anything else that parents can, instead of worrying about how our kids are comparing, is there anything else that we can do as parents to to maybe focus on really supporting our kids in their own individual learning?
Well, I think the first thing is always to go to the teacher and that dialogue with the teacher, and it might be informally or through formal interviews and so forth, but it's really important that you have a good relationship with your teacher. I think that's absolutely pivotal, because you're both working for the same cause. You're wanting the child to be a successful learner.
Yeah, and I think the thing that, as you said, teachers have the benefit of seeing a whole range of children, and they can flag if something is maybe an issue, and other times it isn't, and you don't really need to worry. So, yeah, that's great advice. Thank you, everyone. I know that as parents we can get caught up in comparing how our child's doing to other children, but unfortunately it's not really that useful. What we can do instead though is to really focus on our child as an individual and support their learning and support their strengths and encourage them to take risks and to really develop into their own self and reflect on how they're learning. So and really getting guidance from the teachers is a really good, that's such a fantastic resource. So I hope that you've got some ideas out of this episode, some ways of maybe thinking a little bit differently about how your child might be going at school. Next episode, we're going to be talking about behaviour and discipline. Very interesting topic for many of us. Many of us struggle with how do we teach our kids to behave and to be disciplined within themselves, and teachers have some great tactics. So we're going to learn what they are and we're going to see if we can use them at home. So I hope that you can join me in the next episode. Thank you.